Hi, everybody. My name is Hiro, and I am an alcoholic. I'm so grateful to be here, grateful to be sober, and what a good deal to be here at the Speaker Slam. Philo, thank you so much for asking me to be here. I want to really thank the entire committee. There's so many people that make this thing possible. I mean, it's so much work to first to sit here. My sponsor tells me sitting is the new smoking, and we all know about that, about how that's affecting our health. And but it beats the hell out of drinking. There's so many people I know and love on the Zoom, and I can't mention you all. And thank you for that intro, Alex, and the reading, Jerry, and Emmy. I caught the last third of your talk, and I'm like, oh, I have to go back and listen to the whole Amot audio thing, and there's a part of me that's filled with great shame because normally when I'm like during my sobriety, and this is the only one I've had so far, knock wood. Anytime I'm invited to a conference or a convention, like I am the go to everything guy. Like I learned from the YPAs, man. Like I'm up early, I'm up late, and if I don't sleep until after the convention, that's okay. And but unfortunately, one of the things that happened at the beginning of COVID is, first of all, once Zoom started, I was an early adopter. My last day of having a live meeting was March 12th. March 11th. That was a Thursday. That was our Thursday night Under the Bridge Step and Traditions workshop. My last day of work was on a Friday. That was the 12th, and then nothing. Everything's been Zoom since then. And as a good alcoholic, or a good overachiever, I dove into Zoom, put all my work onto teleconferencing, was helping different groups get on to create meetings. My sponsees created a few meetings, and I discovered that I'm one of the few people who gets Zoom fatigue so bad that I end up with debilitating migraines, where the first 11 weeks of COVID, I was like puking every single week. It was like being a teenage drinker again. It was awful. And so now I really have to titrate my Zoom, and I cut back on my hours, had to leave a board that I was a member of, It's been hard. It's been hard meeting my limits and seeing that I can't do everything, and I'm stubborn. I try to keep doing what I cannot do, and my drinking career kind of attests to that, and so does my sober career as well, which is that I try to do things until I have ample evidence that I can see. But you all knew for a long time that wasn't good for me. Like my spouse could have told me like week 2 that I should probably cut back, and I didn't start cutting back for a while. I should tell you some stats. Previous thought. So otherwise, Emmy, I would have loved to have heard that entire talk, and got me in the feels. And I'll probably have to leave after this so I can conserve my Zoom time. And I deeply apologize for that, but I am going to listen because this is phenomenal. I should tell you some stats. Let's see. I have a sobriety date. It's November 12th, 2007. That is the day that a power greater than me, that I didn't believe in, had no time for, was terrified of, running away from, had a resentment against, and I knew absolutely was after me to punish me, separated me from King Alcohol and his little buddies. And I was really, really grateful for that. I have a home group. It's the Bellflower Big Book group. When we go back to live meetings, which will probably not be June 15th, I hope you come. I hope if you're available on a Monday night and you're around, please come. Once we're opened up again, we get about 300 people pre-COVID on a Monday. And my favorite thing to do is the greeting line before the meeting, because it gets to be about 2 blocks long. And if you come, I'll stand you up in the greeting line right next to me. And it's crazy because if you've never been in a greeting line that long, and especially if you don't like crowds, which I only like crowds if I at the times that I like them and other times I don't. I usually find them overwhelming. But the thing is, if you stand in a greeting line and you're greeting people one after another, and you try to just have a really simple objective, like make everybody feel welcome and try to remember 3 names, I guarantee you, like when the rush hour comes, our meeting starts at 7:30, right around 7 o'clock, it's like person after person after person after person. And I guarantee you, except for momentary thoughts like, oh, do I have something in my teeth? You will not think about yourself for like 20 minutes, no thought about yourself at I had no idea that this was even possible without alcohol or without Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's one of the wonderful effects of fellowship. And I hope you come. I've got a sponsor. His name is Bob D. He's out in Vegas. He knows who I am and what's going on with me, and that's a good thing. And I've got sponsors as well. I think a couple of them are on here. And man, I'm so grateful for those things. You can tell that I'm really excitable. I'm like a chihuahua that's like, ooh, or like but I run out of steam and I'm like a little baby that's like a toddler at Disneyland. Like there comes a point where like I forget to eat or haven't slept enough, and I'm trying, and I still want to be at Disneyland, but I just break down in a tantrum, just like I want to stay. And where the parents are like really clear, no, you really need to go, and I'm not having it. I want to stay. And so, in order to prevent something like that from happening during this meeting, I will get some power, because I was reminded this morning when I took the 11th step that I get to pause when agitated or doubtful. I get to ask for the right thought or action. And obviously, you could probably tell, the right action is probably just to breathe. So I'm going to do that. And the right thought is, God, grant me the power to carry the message you'd have me carry. And I also love my friend Steve A's prayer. He's at Sunday Noon, Ohio Street. His prayer is, God, I'm willing to be embarrassed, but I hope it's not necessary. Amen. So I both love and hate that prayer. I love having said the prayer, but I hate actually saying it. But I love having said it, because if anything embarrassing happens, then I could later on go, well, I said the prayer. That means if I'm not, if at least I was willing. At least I was willing. My job is to share with you in a general way what I used to be like, what happened, and what I'm like today. And you know, I've gotten really, really good at doing that kind of the modern way, the linear way, like going from one thing to another. But something's happening over this past week where I'm becoming really postmodern, like really pastiche-y, like it's more like different feelings, like drive me to different moments of my memory. So this is going to be more like a postmodern film rather than a linear kind of modern film, because especially hearing about hearing Emmy's talk and the shares in between. I've thought about this a lot, especially recently. The whole thing about a coming out process and alcoholism, like realizing that you're an alcoholic is a coming out process. Except unlike so many other coming out processes, this is true for some people who are coming out, but for me, in my alcoholism, everybody knew but me, and maybe and I had to come out to me first before I could come out to like a meeting, and then others around me, but then so many people didn't know, because I'm also really good at hiding it. But everybody that really was in the inner circle and could see me spiraling downward. And the flyers are so epic, Philo. I don't know if you do them or if there's another person who doesn't, but they're so epic. And I saw that that if this were live, we would be at the log cabin in or like right there in West Hollywood, right? And we probably wouldn't have as many people because internationalism and Zoom, but still it would be really, really cool. And the thing about the log cabin, that was a time when I didn't know I was an alcoholic. That was I'll come to that in just a moment. Let me summarize everything before that. So what I was like, I was made in Japan, brought here before language, and my first memories are memories of being of my number one skill, which is I'm really, really good at feeling bad. I've always been good at feeling bad. I'm a fan of like, I didn't know when I would come into Alcoholics Anonymous at the age of 42 that once I started reading the big book, with my sponsor that I got on day -2 of my sobriety, that once we started sitting down at his kitchen table and starting to take these steps, by reading one page at a time, starting on the blank page of the big book, and every time the big book told us to do something, we did it together, and we get barely into the doctor's opinion, and we get to that place about like why people drink, and I love that it says men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. And I'm like, why do people get high? To get high. Why do people drink? To get drunk. But really it's much more subtle than that, because the sensation's so elusive. It's something that evades me. I love getting there. I love getting to that space where I lose me. It happens in a greeting line. It happens sometimes when I'm one alcoholic talking to another. It happens always when I drink, when alcohol is working for me, but it doesn't when it's not working for me. And it's so elusive that even though I might find it might be hurting me or injurious, I can't after a time differentiate the truth from the false. And this happens for me in so many different ways. And to me, my alcoholic life is the only one. And here's the thing. I'm restless. I can't seem to sit still. My sponsor has a great image for this. Bob talks about like the dog that's circling and circling and trying to find its spot, but a dog finds its spot. I can't find my spot. And irritable, easily angered. I had moments earlier this week where I was easily angered, and discontent. I get the thing that I was going to burn my life to the ground for. I get the thing that I was going to sacrifice my family, my relationship for. I get the thing, whatever that thing is. Hitchcock called it a MacGuffin. It doesn't matter what the hell it is. The reason it doesn't matter, I get it, and it's not even the thing anymore. It's now a fossil. It's now an old thing. I might enjoy it for a moment, but then the enjoyment's gone, and then I'm on to a new thing. And so even the thing that I fantasize, that I believe, that I'm convinced, that I rationalize, is the thing that's going to fulfill me. As soon as I get it, I can't desire it. And I think that's the function of desire, because you can't desire what you have, except for Alcoholics Anonymous. My sobriety, I can desire that even sober. And that's one of the mysteries of AA. It's one of the few things that I can have that I can still absolutely desire with all my heart. And the thing is, I'm restless, irritable, and discontented. And when I read that, I realized, oh my God, I had unmanageability on board long before my first drink. I had unmanageability on board as soon as I had language. I had unmanageability on board as soon as I could hear my head going, Hiro, you suck more than anyone's ever sucked before. And not that I hear that voice in my voice, but rather it's just a description of reality. It's just a felt sense. It's just a metaphor for kind of the way I walk through life, obsessed with how I fall short, how I look weird, sound weird, feel weird. And I'm comparing my insides to your outsides, and I don't know that until late into adulthood. And it's kind of like I talk a lot about this comic I saw in the Sunday paper back in the 80s, and it was a single square cartoon. In the top corner of it has this kid coming into like a middle school cafeteria with a tray, and he's got a thought balloon that says, oh no, everyone's staring at me. And then it zooms out in the rest of the cartoon to the entire cafeteria, and everyone has the same damn thought balloon, but I have no idea. But here's the thing, I'm restless, irritable, and discontent unless I can again experience the sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks which I see others taking with impunity. And after I succumb, after I give in to the desire to drink again, as so many do, I end up with a phenomenon of craving. And I go through these stages: a spree, emerging remorseful, firm resolution, never to drink again. And I repeat this over and over and over until a complete psychic change can happen. I mean, here's the deal. That minus the alcohol describes my experience over and over and over. Maybe, just maybe, if I learn how to speak without screwing up my R's and L's and getting to pronounce the TH and the correctly, maybe if I could just speak without sounding so Asian, maybe then I'll be okay. Or maybe, or I'll get obsessed with gaming, or I'll get obsessed with like Star Trek trivia, or I'll get obsessed with the Lord of the Rings, or what have you. And I was so addicted to the space of escape. And one of the things what allows me to escape me, what allows me to escape all of my feeling bad skills. Your approval was one, and science fiction, fantasy, horror, that was another. And your approval, that was a tough one, especially because, by the time I finally learned how to speak right, we moved to Canada first, then to Tucson, Arizona. And in Tucson, Arizona, I realized, my pronouns are wrong. Like I was saying shiz instead of hers, like it was still like Japanesey. And then we moved from there to Tuscaloosa, Alabama in 1971, right before first grade, or first and second grade. And when I get to Alabama, I realized I finally learned how to talk right, but I get to Alabama and suddenly I don't talk right anymore, because as you might know, in Alabamese, the word hi has 3 syllables, like hi. And so I had to relearn how to talk. And so that became my obsession. And I still want to fit in. And here's how I end up fitting in, because like many people in Alcoholics Anonymous, that I experienced a lot of bullying. I experienced a lot of prejudice. I experienced a lot of oppression. And so the way I experienced that originally, even though I didn't have those kind of fancy words for it, I would see the cool kids posted up after first grade at the corner. They'd be all, "Oh, here comes Hiro. Let's play war. You play the Japs." And I'd be like, "Oh, really?" But okay, fine. And I had no idea that later I'd have words for that, like microaggression or prejudice or racism, but I didn't have those words. All I knew is that surrender didn't feel good, and I didn't know that at the age of 42, I would have to surrender my life to a program called Alcoholics Anonymous. And I know that all the big book lawyers in the Zoom are probably thinking to themselves, the word surrender is not in the doctor's opinion or the first 164 pages, and you are absolutely correct. But it tells me that my first step is to concede to my innermost self. In other words, to completely let into my innermost self that I am an alcoholic. That and what that means is that I have to lay down. I have to take down the walls. I have to I have to let go of all my defenses. Or as a vet friend of mine says, I have to lay down all of my weapons, basically, and submit to another authority. And all I knew about surrender then in first grade is that it did not feel good, but it was a way of fitting in. And what I know about surrender today is it never feels good going into it. It often doesn't feel good in the middle of it, but oh my God, it feels really good after. And if you're new or nearly new or recent returnee on this Zoom, or even if you've been around for a while, you might be experiencing hopelessness. And hopelessness and helplessness go together. Hopelessness is hopelessness. The humorous version of hopelessness is like in that old movie, As Good as It Gets, where the OCD character, he's like walking out of a shrink's office and he sees all these sick people and he goes, "What if this is as good as it gets?" And they all get really depressed. That's hopelessness. What like if my life is so dark and it's like, what if my life can never get better? And helplessness is nothing that I do matters. And I know that space. I've been in that space so many times. I've been in that space in sobriety. And the thing about being in that space in sobriety is that I hope that when you land in that space, that you have an attitude that we want you to generate here in Alcoholics Anonymous. In other words, to be facing AA. My sponsor tells me all the time, talks a lot about you could be facing in one of two directions once you're sober. You could be facing toward AA or away from AA. And no matter what's going to happen, his life is going to kick you in the ass. And where you fall is going to depend on which way you're facing. And thank God that the SOS phone call that I made before I started making my second set of plans for suicide, and this time I knew I was going to get it right. Thank God that when I called, I ended up being kicked into Alcoholics Anonymous. And thank God that ever since then, at my lowest spots, I've been facing AA. I've been picking up the phone when people will call. I'll be picking up the phone to call others. I'll be showing up in different places and be supported by those around me, just like Emmy was talking about. And if you're feeling hopeless and you're new, it's really important for you to know that that AA is like backwards land. AA is like there was a moment. It was an ill-conceived moment. Seinfeld and his crew certainly thought so. In DC Comics, when in Superman there was Bizarro Superman who came from the opposite, the mirror dimension, and so they would say you're welcome for thank you, and they would say goodbye for hello, and everything's backwards. AA is completely freaking backwards. Hopelessness outside of here is a cardinal symptom of major depressive disorder. And if you go in and if you can't tell the truth from the false, or if you want to just hold back a little bit on your drinking and using, just because they won't give you the good stuff if you tell them, then they'll try to treat the depression. And in my case, it's just a symptom of my alcoholism. It's something I'm good at feeling bad, and my alcoholism makes it worse. But here in Alcoholics Anonymous, hopelessness is golden. Hopelessness, it tells me in working with others in chapter 7, the whole like step 12 chapter, that I'm supposed once that someone realizes they can identify with my drinking and with the horrible crap that goes on to me when I drink the way I want to, and And if they identify with that, and then I get to emphasize the hopelessness of my condition. At that point, that's when I get to, as the big book says, I get to disturb them about the question of their alcoholism. And this is where I would love to disturb all of us in the question of our alcoholism. In the moments of hopelessness, am I turning toward me, where I'm going to find more hopelessness, or am I going to turn toward you? Am I going to turn toward Alcoholics Anonymous? Am I going to turn toward this power that I discovered in AA, that I have a consistent, well, fairly inconsistent, but repeatedly inconsistent and daily connection to? And I just lied, it's not really daily. I'll go for sometimes periods of time just on self, and it requires a lot more unmanageability again to send me back into AA and doing these things. But I'm always at least on the periphery. And so back then in first grade, I that didn't feel good. Age 12, we moved to California. Here, let me just stay linear for a moment. We moved to California right before third grade. And in Southern California, for the very first time, I'm surrounded by other Asian Americans. And it turns out if you're an Asian American like me that hasn't grown up around other Asian Americans, and suddenly you're surrounded by a bunch of other Asian Americans that grew up around Asian Americans, those Asian Americans have a name for an Asian American like me. They're calling me things like Twinkie and banana, yellow on the outside, white on the inside. I don't fit in with people that look like me. So this is horrible. And I'm like, oh, this is just terrible. And so when I'm 12 years old, I'm hanging out after school in the science fiction book club because that's how cool I am. That's how I roll. And this is, you have to trust, this is long before, this is, 1977. This is when San Diego Comic-Con had maybe 200 people in it. This is long before, the MC universe and the Marvel universe and the Arrowverse and all that stuff happening. This was a time when having the DC comic or a Marvel comic in your backpack meant, that you're definitely going to get teased and hazed in PE in the locker room. So I'm hanging out after school in the science fiction book club, and I am just full of me. I'm feeling that restlessness, irritable discontent. I'm just covered in me. I can't get away from meanness. In fact, I can't even get away from my little bowl haircut that my mom was still covering, that's polyester, like 70s clothing that I was wearing that she would dress me in. And my buddy Dave has already hit puberty. I'm not at puberty yet. I'm just on the cusp of it. But Dave is already 6'4". He's 12 years old. He's 6'4". He's got that Allman Brothers hair, like parted in the middle down to his ass, like that long straight hair. And he's got these piercing blue wizard eyes. And it's like he's looking in my soul, and he's like, I know what's wrong. And I'm like, what's wrong? I know something wrong with me, but you know what's wrong? Tell me what it is. And he says, you're anxious. That's it. That's the word. I am anxious. And he says, I know the cure for that. Meet me on the north side of campus on the other side of that bamboo field before assembly tomorrow morning, and I'll get you some of what you need. And I was intrigued. So it's like an AA meeting. I'm there 20 minutes early, even though there's only two of us. And I'm the greeter for Dave. But he shows up and he shows me how to drink these tall boys real fast and swallow and smoke these funny green cigarettes real slow. And my idea of a good time before this is, I don't know, memorizing pi for another 10 digits. But here I am. I'm having a hard time walking, and I can't stop laughing, and I'm going, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And I immediately become an evangelist for King Alcohol and his little buddies. I want you to feel the way I feel. I have an evangelical spirit about it. And by the time I'm 14 or so, I want to get you drunk or high because I want you to feel the way I want to see you feel the way I used to feel. So I get some vicarious enjoyment, and maybe once in a while capture that thing myself. And then by the time I'm 15, people are telling me, maybe you don't drink right. Maybe you need this place called Alcoholics Anonymous. And I did what probably most of us did, which is I found other people who can drink more than me so that I could feel good about my drinking. Age 16, I have no motivation to live. There's no meaning in my life. My life means nothing. And this, from a firstborn son of two younger siblings, non-alcoholic, hardworking immigrant parents who absolutely loved me, but I couldn't see it because alcohol took me to that place where I can't tell the truth from the false. And they loved me, and they loved me in a way that Japanese parents love their kids by telling them things like, why do you have a B here? Why isn't that an A? And I didn't know at the time that meant they loved me, that they wanted me to have a better life than they did. And I'm there, and I have a handful of Valium and a handful of Librium and a bottle of Bacardi 151, which is now unavailable in the state of California, which is so unfortunate because it's delicious. It's 76% alcohol. It gets you downtown quick. But there I am I'm not trying to get downtown. I'm just trying to get everything to stop. But I forgot that I was a puker because I have 50%, I'm to like 50% of the Japanese population. I've got natural born anabuse in my body. I get to alcohol toxicity quick. So I come to on that shag carpet with a lake of vomit and half dissolved pills. And eventually I became grateful that I didn't die. And my drinking career since from that moment, from the age of 16 to 42, is not characterized by things like DUIs, arrests, loss of my autonomy. Like I've never been 5150, and I've never been hospitalized or institutionalized against my will. Never lost a job due to my alcohol, even though when I took my fifth step, I realized I lost many due to my alcoholism. And I didn't come into AA because what would happen is really described in Bill's story, where I'll have some sort of disastrous thing happen, but the disastrous thing was always mixed up with something else, and it was always kind of, to me, like a pedestrian disaster, kind of like a bourgeois disaster. It took me like 7 years to graduate from one of the major schools and universities in Los Angeles, and then I get into a PhD program, top 25 PhD program in English literature in the Midwest, and there I end up getting what I thought was seasonal affective disorder, and I had horrible graduate student writer's block, and it turns out later I realized that I was actually untreated alcoholism. But I finished what class I could, and I transferred the credits over to the other major university in Los Angeles, and with a full ride. I got a full ride because I'm teaching, like writing to freshmen, but I brought me with me. I hadn't even known about that term, taking a geographic, like going somewhere else to escape my problems, but taking me with me. And there I was. I had no seasonal affective disorder down here, so I didn't have that excuse, but I brought my writer's block with me. And I meet the person who would become my wife, in 92, and we got married in 95. I left the school long before that, dropped out, and just for a moment, got together in 92, married in 95, and I got sober in 2007. You can do the misery math. And for the first 3 years of my sobriety, I used to pitch that she's untreated Al-Anon, and it turns out that my late grand sponsor, Clancy, was absolutely right. That the sicker I am, the sicker she and everyone else looks, the stupider you all look, the sicker I am, right? And it turns out that when I have a home group, when I have a sponsor, when I'm sponsoring guys, when I've got a service commitment, when I'm working all three sides of the triangle, when I'm practicing these principles in all my affairs and continuing to try and grow in God's likeness and image, that what I discover is that she is perfectly imperfect. She does not need a program at all. She's happy being her. She's not addicted to my problem. She's not even addicted to any of hers. She just needs a sober husband. And I was lost. I mean, I thought I basically have two fundamental problems, and unfortunately, alcohol fixes them until alcohol makes it worse. And then my two fundamental problems are this: I'm like I said, I'm really excitable, but I lose motivation really, really quickly. The shine wears off, and I'm just like, oh, what's the point? That kind of hopelessness piece. And second, things become meaningless to me. Like at times they're imbued with meaning, like desire imbues things with so much meaning, but it's like fantasized meaning. But there's so much meaning imbued in something until it's like, things are completely meaningless. It's almost like, Redmond used to talk about how, I always need to have more. But the problem is, even after I get more, later I'm just left with some. And then, oh, crap, all I have is some. I need more. And or even worse, none. Now I've got none. And that's what happens with meaning for me as well. And the problem for me is alcohol fixes it. And there are many other things that'll fix it too, but I'll end up with alcohol. And alcohol is the one thing that will help me to want to die. And what ends up happening is that I'm doing all these odd jobs. I get a job at a hospital. I get for a year. And after I leave that hospital, I get a job at a shelter for homeless and runaway youth in Hollywood. And this is in the late 90s. And in my second year there, and I was working in the crisis shelter. In my second year there, they promoted me to be the lay counselor, the lay group facilitator for their new drug and alcohol diversion program for the crisis center. And as a result of that, I was driving kids all around LA to go to different meetings. And this is right after, shortly after CMA was born, we hosted an in-house CMA meeting. That was beautiful. But then I remember driving to the log cabin and taking kids. And I remember at times my arm would sometimes involuntarily, it's almost like that moment in that really old movie, Dr. Strangelove, where the Peter Sellers' arm, the former Nazi scientist who's working for the U.S. now, he's in his wheelchair, and once in a while when he gets excited, he's like, oh, his arm will go up like this. It's almost like that, where I have this disavowed part of me, are there any other alcoholics in the room, in the format, and my arm goes up. And I'm bewildered. I'm looking at it going, oh my God, you freaking hypocrite. Because, well, sure, I thought I was an alcoholic, but I didn't think I was an alcoholic. I just thought that I was the kind of alcoholic that got to drink on weekends, because this was a time when periodicity was working for me, because I'm a periodic until I'm not. I'm a binge drinker until I need it every day. And I'm obsessed with controlling it, because I've heard so many of you say that, if I'm controlling it, I'm not enjoying it. But if I don't control it, I'll get to alcohol toxicity. I'll take that drink where I'm projectile vomiting, and then it's over for me, because I can't rally. I can't do that drink, drunk, puke, rinse, repeat thing that I would see so many of you do. So I always try to avoid that drink. And so this was me drinking on weekends and taking these kids to these meetings. And just seeing what Alcoholics Anonymous can do. And this was the first time that I fell in love with AA. And it's as a result of being there that I decided I want to go into another doctoral program, different profession, and because I wanted to be a helper. And the problem for me is that I can control and enjoy my drinking until I can't. And sometimes it's longer rather than shorter, and sometimes it's shorter rather than longer. And this was the longest period of time, where from 2001, after I get into a doctoral program at one of those two major programs, two major universities in Los Angeles, and I'm doing it. I feel like I finally arrived. I finally have a relationship to alcohol that works, and where I can drink sparingly. And it's beautiful. And Wilson talks about this in the first 8 pages of Bill's story, where where he has periods of sobriety, and this was the longest one that it wasn't sobriety, but it was a relationship with alcohol that I would have liked to have kept the rest of my life. The problem is I can't keep it. And so 8 months before my sobriety date, there I am in a major hospital on the 5th floor doing the F word mantra, F, 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 like Tourette's rather than, but it's rhythmic and it has a beat to it. And I'm trying not to be actively psychotic. And if you've never been actively psychotic, then you might not know what that means for me. Is I'm hearing things that you don't hear and seeing things that you don't see. And I'm trying my best not to do that. And if you've been psychotic, you know that trying hard doesn't work. And I go to my bosses, and they try and tell them what's going on. They're like, you know what? And the reason I'm trying not to is so I can provide psychotherapy to a 7-year-old. So I go tell my bosses, they're like, don't go see your patients. Please, we'll take care of them. Go take some time off. Go to EAP, the Employee Assistance Program at HR. They'll take care of you. Get some help. Come back when you're better. Please bring a note. And I do. I go in for the very last time, because I'm really good at cleaning up until I'm not. For the very last time, I never like doing it. It's like surrender. I don't like doing it, but I like having done it, because having done it, I'm a cheap date. My tolerance goes way down. And for the very last time, I get off of everything. I go down to baseline, and I come back, and I'm thinking maybe, just maybe, I'll finish this deal, maybe. And someone invites me to a wine tasting, and the medical definition of an obsession is something I have to think in order to be okay. But I think with alcoholism, it's sometimes I have to think that thing, like it's going to be okay this time. But in my experience, also Wilson talks about this in More About Alcoholism, these strange mental blank spots. It's, for me, the obsession the obsession to drink, the powerlessness piece of the mental obsession, for me, also exhibits itself in something I need to not think, something I need to not realize in order to be okay, not realizing that this is going to be a horrible idea to go to this wine tasting. But I go anyway, and I control it, and buy a case of wine that I'm going to cellar, and one bottle that I'm going to pair with I'm going to open the following week and pair with a perfect meal, bacon wrapped filet, some grilled asparagus. It's going to be lovely. Reopen it the next night and let it air out. And what I'm trying to do is prove I'm not an alcoholic. And I didn't know until I came into AA that only alcoholics really try to do that. And of course, even though that experiment goes well that first week, within 30 days, I'm completely insane. And my wife comes in and she's like, "What have you done with my husband? Give me that Visa card, that debit card. Give me all your damn cards. We might be done." And so I make that SOS phone call because I'm terrified of her. But I'm not calling an alcoholic. I knew a lot of sober alcoholics because of my tenure at that shelter for homeless and runaway youth. I had a lot of contacts. I had a lot of people in my life that were happy, joyous, and free in Alcoholics Anonymous. I did not call them because I did not want to have that problem. And instead, I called the person that had been training me for the previous 6 years, and I call her up, and I'm completely insane, and I'm going, I need another shrink. I don't trust my shrink. I think I'm bipolar. I think I need some lithium. And she says to me, "Hiro, what's going on?" Which is a reasonable question because she's never seen me in this way. And I tell her. It was the first of a series of surrenders. And this was one where I just let down all defenses, and I tell her all the skeezy acting out I'm doing, all the crap I'm pouring into my body just to try and get right. I can't even get high or drunk. I go right past high. Or sorry, I go right past being right to being drunk and puking. And the worst thing is like being drunk and puking and have your mind still going, where it's just like, so you can't even freaking drink right. You really do suck more than anyone's ever sucked before. And at the end of burning and telling her everything, she says, "Hiro, I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been sober for 22 years. Maybe you need a meeting." And this thing happens. Like there's a branch 2 inches below my belly button that just goes pop, and I just start sobbing like yucca, 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 like weeping like that. And because like full body release. And because I don't know what happened, but she's the one who taught me how to send you to AA. She's the one who taught me to tell you things like, "Hey, maybe you don't drink right. Maybe you need this place called Alcoholics Anonymous. I can't help you with that." She told me to tell you things like, if you don't believe you're an alcoholic, don't worry about that. Go to one of these meetings in the LA meeting directory, which I would hand you. Go to one of these meetings that doesn't have a C next to it. Those are open meetings. Anyone can go. If you go there to identify, not compare. Go there to listen for similarities, not differences. And if you go and you hear about God, and you have problems with God, like you don't like God, you don't believe in God, don't worry about that. That's a later step. That's advanced Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I knew exactly what to do. And the next day is when I got online, found the closest meeting to me, walked there and found a sponsor, found a man who's socioeconomically nothing like me at all, and asked him to sponsor me. And all these phenomenal changes started to happen very, very slowly, but a lot faster than I could have imagined. And it all amounted to me getting out of the way of me, and me stop trying to fix things the way my mind tells me to fix things, because I will fix problems with other problems, just like Johnny H., founder of my home group, tells me. And thank God that I was able to take these steps. And I discovered that what Johnny was saying was absolutely right. He would always say that the 12 steps exist so I can empty me of me, so I can automatically fill up with the power that I call God. And if you have a problem with the word God, or have been kind of traumatized by churches or evangelists or folks who spoke love to you but then shamed you about other aspects of yourself, we're not talking about that God. We're talking about another power that is absolutely freaking crazy about you, exactly the way you are, and wants you to be happy, joyous, and free. And is not disappointed with any of your with any aspect of your selfhood, but only wants you to be free and have a relationship with this power. And if you don't like the he's and hims and the and all that stuff, what I had to do is I had to start out with a really secular definition of prayer, and a decision. It's basically setting my intention to turn my attention to something that won't mess me up, to a power that can solve all my problems. Setting my intention to turn my attention to a power that. And so, for instance, when I was doing that breathing at the very beginning of my talk, the action of breathing in and out, I was doing just a really simple thing, because the 12 steps, just like my dear friend Ralph W. from LA says, is less hero, more God. less hero, more power. So while I'm breathing, I'm breathing out hero, breathing in power, breathing out hero, breathing in God, breathing out power, breathing out hero, breathing in AA, breathing out power, breathing in your suffering that perhaps, and something that I say may help. And thank God that I was able to take all these steps and do that inventory and make these amends, because just like Emmy was talking about, the early amends for me were to my spouse and to my parents. And I was really clear by this point that, in 5, when I read all my inventories to my sponsor, and I was covered in more of me, like I knew all these things about me, because I thought long before this that self-knowledge would cure me. And I tried everything to increase my self-knowledge, including things like, silent yoga retreats and meditation retreats and Vipassana meditation and yin yoga, yang yoga, going vegan, going all raw, being all macrobiotic, even a short-lived stint with radical Marxism, thinking that that'll cure all my problems. And nothing would fix me long term, and until AA, because I get relief from me just for this day. And I remember after taking that 5th step, and I was so willing that night to take the 6th and ask God to remove these defects. And 7th step, asking for the removal of all my defects. And then I was very clear that people told me, go act as if he's already removed them. And I'm so grateful that I made those early amends. And I was really clear that just like Tim C in my home group, how he talks about how Johnny, his sponsor, tells him that the direct amends in step 9 is just an announcement of the behavior change that already started back in 7, and actually started way back in 1 when I started coming to Alcoholics Anonymous and self-admitting to myself that I'm an alcoholic. And I'm so grateful that my parents, my dad, passed away in April of 2019, and he got to have today is the anniversary of his death. And I remember every Monday night, because he got sick really fast. He declined super fast from he had a fall in September, fell down, couldn't get up. By January, he was in a SNF, skilled nursing facility, and he just did child development backwards in all 3 areas: gross motor development, fine motor development, and language. And in the evenings, thanks to going to the Japanese speaking meeting, and at night when I visited him, I'd be telling him all the things I was grateful for in Japanese. And I was able to do that thanks to going to the Japanese speaking meeting in Gardena. And then this COVID thing hits. And every Monday night during that, I would be at my home group. And as soon as the main speaker comes on, it's like that moment on the phone with Mary when she says, I'm a sober alcoholic. I've been sober for 22 years. Maybe you need a meeting. I'm grasped by my grief. And I don't think a surrender or a grief or a falling in love, or any kind of conversion, I don't think these are things that you can create. I don't think these are things that you can force. They're just things that just grab you. It's like reality is just grabbing you, and there's nothing else I can do. And I would just weep in those moments in my home group. And I have a seat in the front seat, so I have hands all over me, just soothing me. And it was kind of like an orgy, except without the sex, because I didn't know who was touching me, but it really felt good. And I was so embarrassed. But Johnny would always tell me, hey, if you can't sob like a baby in an AA meeting, you can't sob anywhere. You're welcome here, kid. And my mom passed away in her sleep on October 25th of this past year during COVID. And I'm a mama's boy, and so the ground dropped from underneath me, and like she was the glue in all of the relationships of the family, and now I'm just doing the AA thing, making calls just like I practiced in AA. And it used to really bother me that I would treat my family, my parents, my coworkers, my boss worse than I would treat the newcomer or the old timer in Alcoholics Anonymous. This would really bother me. I would get home from an AA meeting and I would yell at my wife, "What the hell is wrong with me?" Until I realized that the 12th step is written that way for a purpose. That if my attitude is I'm facing AA, I'm working with a newcomer, I'm practicing all these AA principles in my home group, in these meetings, what I get to do then it starts to go into the people that I've really harmed, that really matter in terms of my commitment to them outside of AA, and as a result of that. My parents died loving Alcoholics Anonymous. They died knowing that AA saved my life and gave them back the son that they were trying to raise. And here's the deal: it's a bad deal. It's age 55. It's not a bad time to become an orphan, but it's the first time. And the first time's always hard, I imagine. And it certainly was for me. And it's a bad deal when an agnostic who doesn't know what happens before I'm born, what happens after I die, loses people. And I've lost a lot. I know you have too. But here's my experience. I don't know what my belief is. I don't have a belief. But here's my experience. If anything I've said helps you today, my mom was in there. My dad was in there. Johnny's first sponsor, Norm Alpe, whom I've never met, was in there. My grandparents were in there because they shaped my parents. Clancy, my late grand sponsor, who died in the COVID ward last year, was in there. His first sponsor, Bob, and his second sponsor, Chuck C., they were in there. That Bill and Bob were in there. And how do I know? Because I can feel it. I can feel it right here in the heart center, where neuroscientists tell us is where we experience all of our relationships in this neural net around the heart that I experience as fellowship, that I experience as a God of my understanding, as I experience as Alcoholics Anonymous working in my life. Thank you for my life.